I guess my big concern is how he's going to look in, the East Finals and beyond, right? Like that's a very long season, and it's just not guaranteed that this 33-year-old guy is going to be able to hold up. So that's just, I have a lot of questions, obviously, right? Like Giannis was kind of hinting that he might leave, so I totally respect the Bucks front office for swinging for the fences and doing what they did. And like you said, like they only had so many assets to give out or to trade, and they're pretty much depleted now. So, but in terms of how all the pieces fit, this should be fun though, B Rob. Like November is I forgot the exact date, November 22nd or whatever. First Celtics Bucks games of the season in Boston, the first of four, and that should be a lot of fun. I'm just we'll see how it all works out. Like I'm super excited though. Like basketball season is right around the corner. Like we're about to flip into October. Like this should be a lot of fun.
Winning Plays is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
All right, Winning Plays podcast back yet again in what was supposed to be the calm before the storm of NBA training camp, but no, that is not happening. We are not going to go into the season quietly. Souichi Terada of Mass Live. We are coming in with a blockbuster. Damian Lillard going to Milwaukee. Miami coming up empty-handed, and now one more star readily available on the market in Jrue Holiday right there. I guess first off, what's your reaction to this sequence of events here that the Bucks kind of come out of the woodwork and steal Lillard from the Heat and a bunch of other interested parties?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, beer up. I would much rather take a blockbuster NBA trade. My jaw drop personally, but I would much rather take that the Wednesday before training camp compared to last year, which I believe was what, like the 11 p.m. Eastern time kind of deal. I was in Arizona, I think, so I was a few hours ahead. But I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this email thing now.
Much better subject matter to talk about than
yes,
illegal, than not illegal, inappropriate workplace conduct.
Yes, very, very happy that we're talking basketball instead of anything else right now. On less than a week before training camp. Yeah, but like I said, B-Rob, I don't know, my jaw dropped. I feel like pretty much all indications was that it wasn't going to be Miami. I know Celtics fans were a little bit worried, but it seemed like one of those deals where the Trailblazers didn't really want to trade with Miami and everything. The Raptors seemed like a good team, but the Bucks, man, I don't know. Like that's crazy to me. Like I said, my jaw dropped in the sense of like just trying to fit all the pieces in together. I mean, the Jrue Holiday, I know we're going to get into it, but just you lose a piece like Jrue Holiday, he's so important, but then you add a Damian Lillard, right? And
Yeah.
I thought, and I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, and I want to hear your thoughts, B-Rob, but just I'm so curious to see how the Bucks will look, right? Like they'll have a first year head coach, like Dame, obviously, right? Amazing player, all world player, superstar. I thought, you know, especially when with the injuries with Chris Middleton and everything like that, like the Bucks didn't really have a great number two options, scoring options, because Jrue can be that guy, but he can't be that guy night in and night out. Whereas now you have a number one option in Dame, and maybe a lot more of the scoring burden won't have to come from Giannis and everything. So, but you look at it defensively, you lose a guy like Jrue. You think of a Celtics Bucks playoff matchup, and like who's going to guard Jason and Jalen, right? Like you no longer have a Jrue Holiday type. So
Pat Connaughton had it. Pat Connaughton had that like on
right?
lockdown.
You don't even have a
Malik,
Grayson Allen anymore, right?
yeah. Malik Beasley, Jay Crowder. They've got it's like they're betting. They're making the big bet on offense over defense. And I mean, obviously, there's still plenty of time for them to adjust the roster as they go here, but their assets are pretty sharply depleted here. I don't even know if they have any future first left to move. Period. And player wise, yeah, you're like, who's going to stop Lillard, Giannis pick and roll? Like, I don't know, but also who is going to stop, like you said, who's going to stop Tatum Brown or anyone else in the East and on the perimeter? And so it is like, it's a fascinating, you understand why the Bucks did it. Since Holiday as like a number two is clearly like wasn't good enough for them offensively the last couple years, with Middleton not being himself, but now they're going to be stretched should they bring on defense, but it might not matter if they're outscoring teams if they're scoring 20 points a game.
Yeah, and one big concern I did have with Dame is just he's 33 years old and he's had durability injury concerns the past few years. And I'm just a little bit concerned about how he's going to hold up throughout the season. Obviously, the Bucks can do what the Celtics have done with Malcolm Brogdon and Al Horford and Rob and what they will do this season. But it's just that's all, that's an old guy. I'm just a little bit, I guess my big concern is how he's going to look in, the East Finals and beyond, right? Like that's a very long season, and it's just not guaranteed that this 33-year-old guy is going to be able to hold up. So that's just, I have a lot of questions, obviously, right? Like Giannis was kind of hinting that he might leave, so I totally respect the Bucks front office for swinging for the fences and doing what they did. And like you said, like they only had so many assets to give out or to trade, and they're pretty much depleted now. So, but in terms of how all the pieces fit, this should be fun though, B-Rob. Like November is I forgot the exact date, November 22nd or whatever. First Celtics Bucks games of the season in Boston, the first of four, and that should be a lot of fun. I'm just we'll see how it all works out. Like I'm super excited though. Like basketball season is right around the corner. Like we're about to flip into October. Like this should be a lot of fun.
All right, let's take a break to hear from our sponsor, FanDuel. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
No, I mean, it's going to be a straight up arms race coming up here. Because when you have the Bucks making this type of chess move to start the year, then every team, including the Celtics, have to take a hard look at themselves and be like, okay, we like our team. Do we love our team? Do we think we match up well enough against these teams to get over the hump here? And with all these teams being very much now in the win now window, like the pressure is on. Like there's no, you can't say, you can't plan on a year here and there. The Celtics have obviously seen opportunities slip away, great opportunities slip away the last couple of years. And now the road on paper looks tougher. And that's something that we weren't necessarily the case like a week ago now. So that's going to cause all these teams to look at themselves. And I do honestly we'll spend playing time on Lillard stuff, but I think the pertinent stuff now for the Celtics and the rest of the East is this Jrue Holiday situation, which I think is really worth diving into since the whole world knows that he's available after the Blazers picked him up. They're going to keep DeAndre Ayton, it sounds like, a younger guy, a guy that I don't even know. I mean, we can talk about the Blazers later, but this is it's kind of, they did weird stuff here. I'm not exactly sure what to make of it, but they obviously are going to try to turn Jrue into a lot more stuff for them. And the Celtics are one of several interested parties there. What say you about just in general, the going for Jrue Holiday versus the cost of acquisition here for the Celtics in said scenario?
Yeah, I mean, B-Rob, we did a great job on Mass Live this morning, just kind of breaking down the numbers, the contract number, right? Like everyone wants to throw Malcolm Barkley and some picks into a trade, but that's not how salaries work in the NBA, salary cap and all that good stuff. So yeah, I mean, I thought you did a pretty good job of laying it out in terms of this doesn't really make sense. It seems like you're going to have to include a Malcolm plus a Robb, which just, I feel like that's a non-starter for the Celtics and who they are. I do wonder if the Celtics offseason looks very different if the Dame trade happened, say around the draft or so. And then, do you let a guy like Grant and Marcus walk, right? Especially because you're going to want more defensive juice. You look at a Porzingis type end, right? If the Celtics play a little bit more drop coverage, playing against a Dame Giannis pick and roll that's not exactly ideal, right?
Yeah.
A lot of Steph Curry in the 2022 NBA Finals, kind of shades of that a little bit. So, but it just seems like Jrue, with his age, I believe he's also 33. He doesn't really necessarily fit the Celtics core, and it's just one of those things. I understand, the Celtics should do their due diligence and everything, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to make much sense, especially if they're going to get into a bidding war with other contenders. And that's kind of what you laid out, B-Rob, I thought on Mass Live earlier today.
Yeah, it's because this is a guy that they wanted years ago, and the Bucks got him, and the Bucks won a title with him. So it's okay, yeah, that's it's kind of crazy that's happened already, and then they've already flipped him again into something that's the life cycle of the NBA here, where it's okay, you're not set for life here after you win the title, even whatever it was 3 years ago. Nope, we need to get better here again, and we're going to use you to do it.
I mean, this guy was I want to retire
Yeah, right.
Day
No,
earlier.
what was this quote? Was that like last month that he was talking?
No, I thought it was literally like 2 days ago
Dude,
or
oh
what.
my God.
Or it probably wasn't 2 days ago the interview, but it was very recently
Right.
the interview, which is just. I mean, at the same time though, right? Like when we heard about the Kristaps Porzingis deal initially, we thought Malcolm Brogdon was gone, which felt very natural, and then close to midnight, Marcus Smart is gone, right? So it's just that's just how the league goes, unbelievably sometimes.
And so, like, from that standpoint, like, you can make a case for it from like, okay, a closing lineup of like Jrue Holiday, Derek White, Brown, Tatum,
Hmm.
and whatever bigs left, Porzingis or Horford. Like that's pretty damn good. Like that's
Yeah.
probably the best closing five in the NBA. Like top to bottom, pretty easily there. Is it the perfect one? Like not necessarily, but it like that covers all your bases. With that said, your depth in the front court, it's just I think for me it's like the whole depth thing, like in the front court of like
Hmm.
you let Grant walk. So now you have Porzingis, who is reportedly, good to go for camp here. Al and Rob, and that's it. So you even take one of those guys out of the equation, period, and you go down to Luke Cornett on the depth chart chain. Like that puts you in a pretty vulnerable spot if just one of those guys gets hurt, which is almost a
Hmm.
guarantee to happen this year for like given their track record there. So then
Hmm.
it's like, well, is Holiday that much better to mitigate that risk? Or like, are you going to be okay if one of those guys going down? Are you have enough left over to go get someone who can fill that spot with that, the Grant TP? Like that's to me, that's like maybe they can, maybe they have something up their sleeve where they can pull off that kind of a deal, Suichi. But like
Hmm.
on the surface, I think that's might be too much to try to pull off here, especially against what other teams are bidding.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing too, is that Brad Stevens has obviously not been shy to trade away his first round picks, but I thought that's looking at it in the more short term in terms of like, right, trading next year's pick or the past few years and everything. But like they've kept the cupboard pretty stocked up besides that pick swap with the Spurs, and then you kind of look at it and just like, okay. It just seems like they're gonna do their due diligence, but it's not necessarily gonna be something that they push their chips all in for. And I think personally, B Rob, like that's a smart thing to do. Like you've already made your gamble this offseason on Kristaps. Like it does you don't like obviously the Dame trade to the Bucks changes things, but I think you look at this roster and you're like, okay, well, we've already made our big swing. Like that's okay. Like it's okay to kind of stand pat, especially if the Jrue Holiday situation doesn't make sense. So I think you just look at it and you feel okay with where this roster is at. As you said, the injury concerns are very big. I just think depth is too big of an issue, especially over the long regular season. We like the playoffs are long, man. They're 2 months long. That's why I'm kind of concerned with the Dame situation in terms of like, will he be able to hold up? Like, will the Celtics be able to hold up? So
Sure.
just taking away from that depth is not necessarily, I think, the move. And I think that's kind of where we're at, right? And that's just how it is. Like I said, maybe they try to hold on to Marcus a little bit more, knowing that Dame is going to be in Milwaukee. But that's the past, and you just kind of have to live with it now.
Yeah, I mean, that will be talked about plenty if the Celtics get torched by Dame in the Eastern Conference semifinals or finals like that. It's going to be a column that will be written many a time. But it's
Mhm.
like, to your point though, with like the Rock, like yeah, it's like they took their big string of Porzingis. Was that maybe too early? We'll see. But there is something to be said now for kind of seeing what it looks like before
Mhm.
making any other meaningful changes here. And I do think the Celtics still have a swing to make. In my mind, they only have one real big swing left to take, and that's with Brogdon's like contract. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe Brogdon comes to camp and he plays great and everything, like, the chemistry's great and everything's fine. Like, yeah, like that's totally possible that they, ride it out if this group has something special going on and he's fitting in there. But if not, if you want to say, okay, where do we need our next best upgrade to roster to create that, perfect
Mhm.
lineup to go up against Dame and Giannis or Miami if they add another star here? Like that's you have to be able to do that. And if you bet on Jrue now, then you literally take away that option for the rest of the
Mhm.
season here. And that is something I think they need to like the organization I feel like will probably be looking at very closely here, being like, okay, if we're going to spend this trade capital, is this like the right guy to do it on? Or is
Mhm.
there going to be a better fit potentially that might become available in December or at the trade deadline or whenever.
Yeah, and I think that's just a luxury that the Celtics have in that it's a long season. Trade deadline's not until February, right? That's still 5 months away. So let's it's a great idea, I think, just to be patient and see what you've got. And my big thing too is like you look at it, right? The Celtics and Bucks look like the two favorites coming out of these. Both teams at this point have a lot of question marks. Not anything to be like, are they even going to be title contenders? Obviously, they probably will be, but it's just to see how it all fits out. And I think just taking the patient approach is smart because you never know, right? Like I would love to see a Celtics Bucks East Finals and everything. Milwaukee in May is much nicer than in Christmas, for example. But it's just one of those things where you just don't know. The Bucks lost in the first round last year. The Celtics looked like they had an easy path to the finals. That wasn't the case. So it just seems like as of right now, like you said, the Malcolm situation is kind of the most volatile one on the Celtics right now, but we don't know about that, right? Like obviously the vibes could be terrible at the end of training camp and it could be very obvious that a trade is needed, but that's not set in stone. Like training camp starts next week and then you have we're a little less than a month away from the start of the season. So at this point though, I think you kind of just look at your options, see how the roster battle takes out, maybe a Lamar Stevens or somebody surprises you a little bit. And I think you can kind of go from there.
Ever wish you could navigate the betting field with the confidence of a pro? Enter Odds Are. They're not a sports book, but they're the sports betting advisor you always needed. It's like having a playbook for smarter bets right in your pocket. I've been absolutely loving the experience, and I think you will too, especially since Celtics All Access listeners get a 30-day free trial. Elevate your game day and join the smart betting revolution. Go get it at oddsr.com/Celtics. That's oddsr.com/Celtics.
Yeah, be some fun end of roster battles during camp here that we'll get to be watching in a couple weeks. And the other one thing with Jrue too, that I think is worth for us discussing is like he's got 1 year left in his deal. Like he's gonna opt out. He's gonna want a new big contract at age 34. And the Celtics may not be able to afford that, may not want to pay that regardless. And so are you willing to just give up that much for 1 year of a guy? Like and be willing to which a case can be made for that. Be like, okay, push in all your chips. Yeah. Like make a team that is impossible to stop and then deal with the ramifications later. But then if that doesn't work, then you're in a really, really rough spot next summer.
Yeah, I don't know, B-Rob. I kind of thought maybe not like obviously Jrue trade would be all in, but it felt kind of like last year for the Celtics, they had a kind of in like a very ideal situation in terms of like pushing all your chips in, especially with the new CBA and everything. Like they had a guy like Malcolm Brogdon being a sixth man, right? Like you had a Derek White who wasn't even necessarily like he played all 82 games, but there were times when he wasn't even necessarily a starter. Like that kind of felt to me like the team where you didn't necessarily go all in because you're not dealing with like picks and like kind of paying it forward and everything like that. But that felt like a all in situation in the sense of this it wasn't going to get to be a much better situation, it felt like. And so I think that with it just seems like a Jrue Holiday trade though you would have to pay it forward a few years later. It's kind of like the NFL where you just kind of kick the can down the road with a salary cap and restructure salaries and everything. Like the Celtics don't necessarily have that going forward, so I don't think they necessarily need to do that just because I think the number one thing with the Celtics right now is that this feels sustainable in the sense of like you have Jalen locked up, you're gonna lock up Jason, and obviously you're gonna have to be savvy. You're gonna have to hope like a Jordan Walsh or someone hits. Eventually down the line, some cheap production, but this still feels sustainable. Whereas with the Bucks, right, like Dame is 33. Yeah, sure, Giannis might not necessarily leave anytime soon, but Brook Lopez is getting up there in age. Chris Middleton is getting up there in age. Like it doesn't change the fact that they have a very stagnant roster, whereas the Celtics, they're in a good spot in terms of like the front office has done in my opinion, a great job in terms of keeping this as a sustainable product as of now.
No, it's a really good point. Like the like this for the Bucks, this could be a 1 or 2 year spell. Like if things don't this doesn't work there, like they could just blow it up next summer and be like, let's take if Giannis is gonna leave, like let's get all we can for him now. Who wants Dame? Like Brook Lopez, you're old too. Like we don't want to pay you all that money. Let's like, that's extreme. Like I don't expect that to happen. Like they could obviously win all, but like there is a very real downside in Milwaukee here and there. Again, they kind of foresaw that probably coming anyway, so they're trying to make this trade to, fight back against it and at least give, something for Giannis to hold on to. Maybe even if they start out strong, like, hey, Giannis, this looks pretty good. You want to sign this thing now? Like, what do you think? But it seems like he's probably just going to keep the pressure on and knows that all these guys are in their 30s. And like, even like Chris Middleton, like, he didn't look like anywhere close to himself last year. So he's probably like the biggest X factor in all this now. He gets to be the third option, but like, if he's not right, then it's like, okay, like that's defendable.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like the big thing with Dame, I thought with trading him was that like he could make $63 million in 2026, 27 at age, 36, right? Like Dame is awesome. I've been a Dame, I've enjoyed watching Dame for a long time. And I got a few friends being like, us Dame fans, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, man, Dame's great. But look, like he's getting up there in age. You just don't know what the Bucks are going to look like. And conversely, you don't know what Giannis is going to look like. I feel like that's the biggest question mark right now. So, but we'll see. I'm excited for this season, though, B-Rob. We got the Celtics week ahead, media availability and everything, and I'm sure we're gonna get into kind of the thick of it very soon here. I'm enjoying the last few days of the off season, but this should be fun, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
It really should. It's plenty of meat on the bone to start this training camp here next week, and whether it's a holiday situation or just camp itself, plenty of storylines here. We'll be on top of it all at Mass Live. Between Souichi and myself, starting on Media Day on Monday. So check us out there. Check Souichi out on Twitter, or X, if you will, at Souichi, Souichi Terada. If you're not already, you should be. And yeah, that's it, guys. We'll obviously be on top of these roster moves in the weeks to come, in the days to come here. If anything breaks, we'll be on it. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys at camp next week.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. When you place a $5 bet, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose.